second to roll and be ready to go. Welcome to Bon Jovi Discussions. Today I have my buddy Austin, who's taken time out of his vacation time right now to do this episode with me. I know we kind of talked about this a while ago, and as soon as it was starting to circulate, we wanted to talk about this. Anyway, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really well. Much appreciated, Jerry, for my second time on the podcast. And yes, I will take time out of my vacation to talk about this particular topic. So really excited, and again, much appreciated.
Absolutely. I was just telling Austin before we started the show, I wish I could rock a polo like this guy. Anyway, but let's get right into our topic because it's big news as far as Bon Jovi news goes. So today, it was announced on several articles that Richie had said on Absolute Radio in the UK that he's planning to get back with Bon Jovi. So obviously, before we get into this, just to kind of clear some things up, nothing official has come from the band. So right now, all we have to gauge on is what Richie had said on the interview yesterday. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the first article that posted it. Absolute Radio, Planet Radio had posted the article. So we'll just kind of start from the top. So he talked about, obviously, Richie has been huge news the last few days, with the Masked Singer announcing announced his new solo album, which I'm really excited for.
Mm-hmm.
But so let me scroll down through this article here and just kind of pinpoint the most important things. He talks about Jack and Potato from the Masked Singer, which I talked about in the last episode of Bon Jovi Discussions. You would think I'd be more prepared. Okay, so the first thing that he said, according to this article, when he was asked about reuniting with Bon Jovi, before we get into the article, synopsis, he kind of talked about how he wants to record, keyword there, wants to re-record or record with Bon Jovi again, write music, and then also tour with them like a reunion. So when he was asked about it, he said, "We're talking about it. I don't think there's any reason not to at this point." And then he kind of goes into the London thing, but then back to the Bon Jovi thing, he says that he hopes to perform with Bon Jovi again, and that John was having a hard time with his voice a little bit and needed to take a little bit of a breather. So let's stop there and just kind of reiterate that. So the only thing I didn't like about that is that I don't think he should have said anything about John's vocal issues. I don't think that was his place to say anything with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That's sort of John's, space to make that decision. And like you talked about previously, what we're anticipating is something, further down the road. And if that's because of that reason, fine. But it was sort of interesting. Like it was sort of like a indirect comment.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, and I absolutely love Richie, and I'm looking forward to supporting him on his solo music. And if he comes back to Bon Jovi, I'm looking forward to supporting that too. The only thing I didn't like was on several. Have you watched all of the interviews that's been out over the last few days that he's done in the UK?
Probably not as much as you. I've seen bits and pieces. Yeah. Again, I'm on vacation, but
but every time that he's talked about Bon Jovi and John, he's been more of a I approach than a we approach,
Yeah.
And but back to the vocal thing, I don't think the vocals should have been addressed, because John has never put Richie down in the media, and
when there was visible issues with Richie.
Yeah.
Going back to 2011 and to be honest, John was very classy and like you've talked about before, the band has kept such a tight knit on their own information. That it was just, it was done a particular way in John's, camp, and yeah, so I don't know how that will play out with what Richie said or how that will go,
Yeah.
but
and to kind of give Richie credit here, this is also an article that had so the actual interview from Absolute Radio is not out yet. So Planet Rock and all these news articles had access to it before we even. So maybe they could have twisted things and they could have left some parts out. So to give Richie credit right now, he may have not meant it in a bad way or anything like that.
sure, yeah, his word's not hasn't technically been heard, so
Exactly. We know how the media is. So then it goes on to say, Richie also said in his relationship with John is still good a decade on from his Bon Jovi exit, explaining, quote, "You know what? There's no malice. I mean, we did something. There's not a lot of bands that did what we did. I mean, obviously bands like blah, blah, blah." Which means, bands, like he said many times that they did 30 years together and toured the world and had all this success.
Yeah, pretty repetitive message, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's always said that to the last 10 years. There's no malice. There's no malice. There's no malice. Okay,
Yeah.
And then he talks about his solo album, which comes out. His solo album has kind of been postponed many times in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, exactly. That news article has been up and so many times, and now it's back to fruition. I don't know.
Yeah, like it was supposed to come out last spring, then it turned out to be late summer, then it turned out to be the fall, and now it's like it's coming. I think Masked Singer was kind of like a great way for him to promote the new album. I mean, he is in the news. I mean, I've seen him all over the news now and stuff.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but he looks good. He looks and sounds a lot better because it's probably unfair to compare him to maybe the tougher times that are not necessarily public, but we sort of know what happened. But I am glad to see him looking better, sounding a lot better, and there's been some recordings of some of the sets he's played recently, and obviously that's something to look forward to in the future with the band.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because if you look, it's no secret that Richie has had issues, and nothing against him.
No,
a lot of people do. You can tell from 2013, especially up until at least even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot of his performances, a lot of his interviews were like out there, and he wasn't doing so good. But I can tell you, in the last year, he looks clean. He looks happy, healthy, and judging from the Masked Singer and his December performance in London, man, he sounds incredible.
Yeah,
like really good vocals, and so I'm glad to kind of see him where and that would make me lead to believe that all of this is true, that he is coming back because he's in a healthy standpoint again, because I don't see John allowing him to come back if he was a mess,
Yeah, I totally agree with you because, you and I agree that the band is stable. It's in a good place. The 2 albums that they've had together in this group, and obviously the tour was shortened in the 2020 album, but it would take a lot for John to change that. And like I said, I think we're seeing signs of why John would potentially sign off on that.
Exactly. So to continue with the article, he goes, "I don't know when John's going to get his voice together and when and quotes, when the Bon Jovi reunion is going to happen, but we have to get out there and do it for the fans. Really, I feel a second obligation." And so, you kind of keyword there, reunion, next year is going to be, well, even this year will be the 40th anniversary of the band signed together.
Correct. Yeah.
Next year will be 40 years since debut came out, as you know. So I think now is it's a perfect way to do it. And I'm not saying it's going to be a final tour. My personal thought is just if you gauge on how the last 10 years have been, the touring has slowed down tremendously.
Yep.
And John doesn't have that desire. It's clear as day. John doesn't have that desire to go out on tour as much anymore. Rightfully so. And so I truly think that potentially next year could be the last world tour of the band. I don't see the end of the band. I still see new music. I still see maybe residencies or little small tours like they did last year in April. I just think world tour, I think next year will be it. And what better way to do it than have Richie come back for a final tour and celebrate 40 years together? You know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I don't think Bon Jovi has a need to address and announce a final tour. Like, they've, obviously there's other bands who have done that and then come back, and it's a whole whirlwind of things. And yeah, so yeah, and it seems like John is really enjoying his time away from touring, which true fans like that, because he missed so many birthdays, and not just him but the band missed so many birthdays and family things, and it is a struggle and a balance of figuring out how do you please that audience, and how do you write new music and all those things. But yeah, it seems like a very good time to come together and mash all those things together and celebrate the band in a really well done way.
Exactly. And and you look at like I said, I could be wrong. They could probably do another 10 years, maybe at this pace that they're doing. They could do another 10 years. I'm just thinking, if Richie does come back, I don't see him doing more than one tour.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of, I don't know, like, Richie comes back next year, but then the band decides to tour in 25, but Richie doesn't want to. And then Richie joins it again in 3 years. Like I think
could get complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of go out with I don't say go out, because I still see a continuation of Bon Jovi. But if this is gonna be the last world tour, do it with a bang. Do it with Richie back.
Yeah.
So the article, let's see here. He's had a good life. And then Leona asked him in the interview about new music with Bon Jovi, and Richie said, "Oh, if he doesn't let me, he's crazy. I'm on a tear." Which I think "I'm on a tear" means like his new solo album is incredible, which I don't doubt. The snippets that we've heard is good.
Yeah.
But I think, judging from, like I said, the whole interview is not out yet, so we don't know what's been fully said, because the media likes to take things out and reword things or kind of make it look like this way when it's really that way. And
sure.
But judging from that interview, it sounds like touring is definitely an option. But writing again with John is kind of more hopeful than anything.
Well, let's just face it. He, left the band high and dry.
Yep.
And so I could see John's point of, just because you're ready to go and you all of a sudden want to come back all these years later.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily mean we're ready or I'm ready.
Exactly.
Or, and I understand, because to me, and obviously I would assume you would agree, John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora are in the same category as, Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, Mick Jagger, and Keith Richards, Lennon, McCartney, etc. It is a partnership that I don't think gets more credit than they should, or enough credit. Yeah. But it's not like they can just get back into a room and start writing again, because there is some, not tension, but that happened, and I just it's sort of unfair to the band to think that just because Richie's ready to go again, they would just jump in.
Yeah,
so there's sort of a hesitancy, because what if that happens again, or are you committed to a world tour or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, but to counter that a little bit, there may be more than what we know. Maybe John and Richie have kind of worked things out in the last few years and stuff, and
I hope so.
Yeah,
we all do.
Yeah, obviously, with Richie saying this publicly now, I do think it's true. I'm not doubting it. I don't think Richie would go out and say it.
It wouldn't make a lot of sense, because if it's wrong, then where does it go from here? type thing.
Exactly. Can you imagine John right now, like reading the article and going, what the, so
Yeah.
I do think that they have been probably communicating and working things out, and maybe they will get into a room and write new music together, which would be great. I'd love to see new songs written by both of them and Richie to record. But to continue on with the article here, because I want to go over some more key points. And then he goes to say about how he wrote other Bon Jovi stuff too. And it's a misnomer when people go just because his name, John Bon Jovi, is on the band, that's the name. We just really couldn't think of anything else really. That was one of the things that I kind of irked me in the last few days, was that he kind of portrayed himself like, I don't know if I really want to go down this road.
Well, like it almost sounds like that still bothers him.
Yeah. Like,
you know,
go ahead, buddy.
well, the story or the saying of like, he's always been John Bon Jovi's right hand man, and there's been, front man, lead guitar player, tension, and does that really affect him? And maybe I'm naive, but I've always thought that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And I think it's been well documented that Richie Sambora has been a co-writer in all those big hits. Yeah. But I guess the band's name is Bon Jovi, so
yeah. At the end of the day, it's John was the one that got the record deal, and everybody else was signed under him.
Yep.
And I'll give Richie and the rest of the band credit. They are what made the band successful, because maybe John wouldn't have been as successful if it wasn't for Richie, David, Tico, Alec, Hugh as well.
Yep.
But I'll admit Richie did contribute a lot to the band. Songwriter, producer, guitar player. His vocals with John. Mm-hmm. He is a great right hand man, and I feel like he's right now. I think he's trying to prove how important he was to the band when he was.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the approach he's trying to make right now with these interviews. And to kind of give him credit too, if you watch like the Good Morning Britain interview, the male interviewer wasn't really giving him time to answer a question. Did you see that interview? Yeah, like he asked John or asked Richie questions about Glastonbury or the band coming, and Richie wouldn't get the chance to either answer or elaborate on his answer. And I get interviews and those kind of talk shows, they're on a time crunch. But if you're going to ask those kind of like heated questions, give the man a time to answer. Yeah. So I don't think there's anything else in this article. No, that's it. So before we get into our key points real quick, do you have anything else you kind of want to say about the article that we just went over?
No, I think we summed it up well. I mean, again, I hope that he doesn't feel that way, but I understand, maybe where he's coming from. Obviously, I can't ever put myself in Richie Sambora's shoes.
Yeah.
But and the vocal thing is again, his words will technically come out in a couple days, but all in all, the fact that he wants to come back and there's what we see as communication between them, John Bon Jovi, the band, and him, that's what everyone's been wanting, right? So
exactly.
Let's do it.
And that's kind of like a big thing right now. What a lot of people want. If this does happen, this is going to be a huge moneymaker tour. I mean, this is going to bring a ton, because everybody's been wanting Richie to come back. And, I think especially after Alec's death, it's kind of opened up the band's eyes a little bit more, as far as, hey, time's of the essence here. And you get 4 of the original members again, especially with Richie coming back. I mean, Richie is such a huge monumental piece of the band. It's going to be a huge moneymaker. Tickets are going to sell a lot more, faster. Potentially, if A, they say Richie's coming back, B, this is the final tour, they could potentially sell stadiums out with this. Yeah,
no, that's what I was thinking. I mean, that's what we're sort of talking about now, and rightfully so. you know.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of them need money, obviously, that what a obviously I would love to see them in a club, but
Yeah.
that that time has probably passed. But
Yeah.
yeah, that would be, we're talking, what they, used to do best, and obviously they still do, but um, worldwide stadium tour, I think, is definitely something to, anticipate.
And I kind of want to bring something up because when I tweeted the article today, it's always interesting to see everyone's opinions and views, and nothing right or wrong, or not there's nothing wrong with what people, a lot of people were kind of excited, and then other people were kind of weary about it because of the way that he left. Some people have lost respect to Richie, and so if this does happen, I do feel like Richie does owe an apology publicly, because he's to this day, well, he's always sad because of his family, blah blah. But
Yeah.
there's more to it, and that's none of our business, I guess. But I just feel like the way that he left in 2013, leaving the band high and dry, like you said,
Yeah.
I think he should publicly apologize at least, or just something. With me, I was very upset with Richie from 2013, probably until 2016, 17 when RSO came out, and I kind of learned to forgive him as from a fan perspective, and
Hmm.
just kind of was like, you know what, it's okay that he left. The band's doing great without him. No disrespect to Richie there, but the band's doing good. I'm supporting the band with what they're doing and then Richie's doing his own thing, and I'm supporting that. So I kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of found my peace with the whole split up.
Yeah,
But
and maybe Richie does feel that need or that void to make that apology, which I think he, would be a great idea, but maybe he's going to do that by coming back and playing these shows.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I can't really say much more than what you said. I mean, obviously there was a period of time where you're just, you're sort of frustrated and confused, but I just, again, continue to appreciate the band and how they move forward, and enjoy it. There's no need to be negative or obviously we want to understand what's going on, but it's like, well, we're not in the band. We don't know those things.
exactly.
And if, I think we might talk about this in a second, but kudos, and I hope to meet him one day, but brother Phil X
Yeah,
has, that it has been the superhero, as as
yeah,
John says. To get a call and, you know, basically be there in a couple days on that because we can tour, and then basically since then, in the way he's not only filled in but become his own rightful, place in the band, is he's definitely a brick or multiple bricks in the house of the
yep.
band.
I,
Pun intended. So
and that's my next segue here is Phil X, because like you said, he saved. I mean, he saved the band in 2011
yep.
temporarily when Richie was in rehab. Saved the band again in 2013, and has continued the last 10 years with the band. And I also think he kind of revitalized the band when the band needed it. With a new
Oh
sound,
yeah.
energy, and the way that he plays live. I mean, man, he's just an incredible guitar player. And I can't stand when people like, oh, he's no Richie Sambora. Well, he's not trying to be Richie Sambora. He's Phil X
Mm-hmm.
covering a solo without making it any different, but also making it unique in his own way. And he does an incredible job. My always go-to example is Keep the Faith. Keep the
Yeah.
Faith is one of those songs I don't really care to see live. I like the
Yep.
song, but I don't care to see it live. And
Yep.
I kind of got tired of the band outro at the end. But once I saw Phil doing that outro with the band, I was like, you know what? I look forward to this every night now at the shows. So that's
Yeah.
like one of my perfect examples of just, or the way he does the always solo and stuff,
Oh, well, that you say that because the true fans or the fans that have seen the show, you can almost see that, especially like Tico looks a lot more energized. Not that he needs it, but like in that outro specifically, everyone is just sort of it just I don't know picks it up, or it's just something that is really unique and something I've always wanted to mention to Phil, that not to brag, but being there at Wembley in the always solo as he's coming onto the runway of the stage, John sort of gives him a head nod. And I've always wanted to ask him that that's such a, um, an important, like a head nod, like, you're in the band type of
yeah,
gesture.
yeah,
Like go to the walkway and go face Wembley by yourself. You deserve it. That type of thing. I just have always,
yeah,
and then he shredded the solo,
yeah.
so I've always admired that.
It's funny. I thought the same thing. I even told my wife like a couple months ago when we were watching that. I said, look at John. Let Phil take the center stage here on the walkway and just nailing that solo.
Yeah, yeah. I just he
He also,
deserves it. He deserves it. And uh, you know,
and,
people who want to talk negative about that, then they
yeah,
can they can miss out.
exactly. And with Phil pretty much saving the band and being such an integral part of the band the last 12 years,
Mhm.
it wouldn't be fair, and I don't see this happening, but it wouldn't be fair for him to be asked to leave so Richie could come back. What
No.
what I truly think is going to happen is Phil will stay on the tour next year, or if Richie does come back, I do believe it'll be Richie and Phil. Now Shanks, I enjoy Shanks. I think he's a great guitar player. He's a great producer. I also think that it's time for the band to find a new producer,
Yeah.
and I don't see the purpose of Shanks on stage, especially if Richie comes back.
Yeah.
You're gonna have three guitar players plus John when he plays guitar.
Yep.
I think that's overkill. I don't mean any disrespect to Shanks because I do like him. I do think he's phenomenal. I just don't see his need next year.
Yeah, I have nothing to say that. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's produced some of my favorite albums and Have a Nice Day, etc., and leading up to now, and yeah, it's been a good run. And I feel bad sort of saying it that way, but it's sort of a polite like, thank you for
Yeah,
your service.
yeah, yeah,
but that and obviously John and Shanks can have that discussion and
yeah.
but
And maybe John will have Shanks stay. I mean, like
yeah.
I said, I mean, that stage is going to get so crowded.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I would like Everett to stay though because
I
I think
would too. He
he's
he
always,
again brings so much energy.
yeah, exactly. He's always having a ball. I love when he sings, and he's fun to see. But you get okay. Let's count here. So you have John, Phil, Richie, Shanks, Tico, David, Hugh. I mean, that's 8 people on a stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's gonna get crowded.
It's always funny because I've taken a couple buddies who aren't really familiar with the band to a couple shows, and Hugh and Everett are so funny to watch because Hugh's just Mr. Cool, sunglasses, just stay, and then Everett's just going crazy and singing. And it's a really contrasting view.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And one thing I want to add about Phil and Richie is like it'd be so great to kind of see Phil and Richie play together. I mean, Phil and Richie are both my favorite guitar players, not just because of their contribution with Bon Jovi, but because
Mhm.
they are literally some of the like even Phil's stuff on the side is amazing. Richie's solo stuff is amazing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to see two of those forces together playing, man, that's going to be awesome.
And singing together too. Like how does that sound? Or
Yeah,
um,
that's true.
because
You-
I never looked at Bon Jovi's missing Richie or vice versa, but Richie Sambora as a vocalist is, that's what sort of I think puts him over the top too.
Yep.
Just as a vocalist in general. So, yeah, it's just sort of a romantic thought to see that again.
Yeah. And we briefly saw what it could be like, at the Rock Hall.
Oh yeah,
Just a
yeah.
little bit. But and my other thing is too is how will they trade off some of these songs and solos? Will Richie do the first 30 years worth, and will Phil just do stuff from this
Uh,
house and 2020, or will Phil maybe get a chance to do a solo here? Now, obviously, like songs like "Wanted" or "Bad Name"
oh
and
yeah, yeah,
"Bad Medicine," I think Richie would take, because at the end of the day, those are Richie's songs. But I also want to see Phil do some of those songs too. So maybe they'll just kind of, you have this song, I'll take this song kind of thing. And I think they'd
well,
both be gracious to do this or do that.
well, I hope so. And like you said, I don't think Richie Sambora would come back and make it about him and
Yeah.
but it's also the catalog has grown so much. I'm sort of not scared. That's not the right word, but those songs in 2020. Do they make another tour set list? Especially so that's sort of thankfully the both of us have gotten to see some of those songs live, but Let It Rain, Beautiful Drug, etc. Maybe they don't make
Yeah.
the set list moving forward, which
That's a good point too, because you're celebrating 40 years, so a lot of general audience fans, meaning not non, it's gonna be a lot big, kind of like Kiss's final tour. A lot of the general fans are gonna want to go see the show. They're gonna
yeah,
expect the hits.
yeah,
Um, the only song that I can see staying from 2020 is "Do What You Can." Yeah.
yeah. No, I agree. Yeah,
Uh, but yeah, we talk about set lists, and this is kind of another point I wanted to talk about. Sadly, if you look at this house tour and the tour last year, the set lists have kind of been generic. And maybe I'm just saying
very.
it from a diehard fan point of view.
No, but you want some change, and
Like we're so accustomed over the last 40 years of the, well, I should say 30, over the last 30 years of the band, you didn't know what to expect at a show. You didn't know what they were going to open up with. You didn't know how many encores they were going to do, what
yeah,
rarities they were going to pull. But this, and I don't know if maybe it's just because Richie wasn't there anymore, and John just kind of wanted to stick to his set. Um, but it was like the same set list every night. It was all of the hits. It was barely any rarities. And I understand America sucks with just one
yeah,
hits and nothing. Fans like you and me would be fine with a whole show of just deep tracks.
yeah,
But with Richie hopefully coming back, I would love to see a lot of deeper songs being played. The set list being changed up every night. Like I always say, the Circle tour and
yeah,
2011 tour, which is pretty much the same thing,
yeah.
had the best set lists because it was
They
always
did.
different.
Oh, they did. They did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, going to the first two shows of the 2020 or the 2020 tour in 2022, um, going to opening night was fun because I didn't know what was going to happen, and then the next night or the next show was the same thing, and I'm just like, I mean, you can't just switch up one song, but I get they were just getting back into the swing of things, etc.
Yeah. That's,
But yeah, it's sort of there for the taking, and I
yeah.
and I know John struggles with you can't please everybody, and there's a certain and like you said, especially in America, between you and I and whoever's listening, those fans are sort of irritating. They want they could listen to You Could Blow Bad Name 100 times. Be fine.
Exactly.
And I like it because people get involved, etc. But we're there for Love's the Only Rule or
Exactly.
Radio Save My Life or whatever.
Yep.
So that's what makes it fun for us. But that's John's
Yeah.
and hopefully Richie's challenge.
And I've seen this over the years. I've been to so many shows, and every tour I go to multiple shows, and like you said, the last two tours it was the same show pretty much every night. But over the years, of going to shows, I have noticed that when the band does do a rarity, or for example, last tour, they did Radio Save My Life Is Tonight, a staple every night, which amazed me. I was happy about it. But you looked around and people would be like, what's this song? And then like,
Yeah, and
like
you and I are freaking out.
yeah, like, oh my God, this is Radio
Yeah,
Save My Life Tonight. This
yeah.
is an outtake from Keep the Faith. And oh my God,
It
and
was so funny. It was. They started, kicked into it. Time stood still for a second. I'm like, is this happening? Like, because
yeah,
but that's what makes it so fun. Because then you have to react um, but also too. So seeing the band 10 times over, since 2011, I've never seen Richie Sambora.
oh man. And,
So that's another intriguing layer to this.
and that's another thing. I'm glad you said that too, because like in recent years, probably in the last 2, 3 tours, I have met people that said, I've never seen the like younger fan. I mean, I'm 30 now, and I'm meeting people that are like in their teens,
Yeah.
seeing the band for the first time, like, oh my God, like I'm seeing the band for the like. I remember on the last tour, there was this 14-year-old girl,
Hmm.
diehard fan, and she was just excited to see the band for the first time. And so like it kind of people complain about John's voice and blah blah blah. It was interesting to see someone just excited to be there
Yeah, and that's
and,
what
and
that's what it's
enjoy.
about.
And
Yeah.
so, like your point, there's been a lot of fans that the band has acquired that are new and haven't seen the band yet with Richie. And so, be a great way for people to see the band together as
Yeah, and the doubters will say what they need to say or feel obligated to say. Bon Jovi has been more than okay without Richie Sambora, and that's again not a knock on him.
yeah, that's true.
And they sold out stadiums in 2016 across Europe. They sold out arenas all across North America. They went to South America multiple times, and people who want to go, and they want to hear those songs. So again, not a knock on Richie, but it is a fantastic cherry on top to see him come back. And like we said, I think it's the right timing, and those fans who like myself or the newer generation, to see that together is something to appreciate and not sit there and critique like, oh, why does John and Richie sound like this now, or who
Yeah,
knows what people will come up with. It's all about appreciation at this point, and
yep.
and
Ex-
again, I it's just such a romantic thought to think that they would be back together again.
I know, and that's where I want to kind of leave this podcast with is how excited I am, and I know you are too, as a die-hard fan to see Richie come back. I mean, over the years, seeing Wanted it's still great to see, but to me, it's not as special because that's like one of those songs, like Diamond Ring, for example, or
Oh yeah.
Signs,
Oh
or I'll Be There for You. Even that's a
yeah.
John Richie song.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the
Songs.
double neck acoustic and the look and the hat and the
Yeah, exactly. And Phil does a great job at those. Don't get me wrong,
yeah.
but songs like Wanted, like that was a John and Richie combo. Especially at the end of Wanted when they would both swing their guitars side by
Yeah.
side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like just like a form of brotherhood. And like in 2011 and 2013, when it was fresh that Richie was gone, you could tell that look in John's face. He was hurting, and
Yeah. It was almost like, he looked on his right shoulder and
yeah.
wasn't
So
there.
yeah, so it would just be exciting to kind of see Richie back in the band, and Richie's doing phenomenally. I mean, if you listen to him on Masked Singer, man, he just sounds great.
Yeah, that was so refreshing. And, after, not to get into this too much more, but, Aftermath of the Lowdown, I think is spectacular. And, Weather in the Storm and, 7 Years Gone and Learn How to Fire with a Broken Wing and all those songs are just incredible. And I just, again, I can't say enough about him and the band, and what they were together, and hopefully what they will be again.
Yeah,
is exciting.
you said it perfectly. And to conclude, I think everybody is in a good place right now to where, like Richie said in the interview, why not?
Yeah.
Richie's doing good, the band's doing good. I believe John's been doing, as we can tell, the necessary steps to rest his voice and get better, and all respect to him on that. So as long as John's up to it and stuff, and Richie wants, why not come back, just enjoy the ride together,
What we should do is you and I, Richie and John, will get some Hampton water, and we'll nail out the details, the four of us, and we'll solve the world's problems.
How about you and me? We just tell them what to do.
Yeah. Here's the set list every night. Here's where you're gonna play.
This is where you're gonna play, and you and me, we're gonna be front row center every night. And, yeah. So, anything else you want to say?
No, I just appreciate it. I get so giddy, about, because it seems like these days that it's few and far between you get to talk about Bon Jovi and where things are going, and obviously as a fan I appreciate the band having their own time, but to have this type of news is just
I'm glad you brought that up too, because now that we're in the middle of February and stuff, we kind of need some kind of Bon Jovi news at this point. We need, obviously, it's not a secret. We know they're putting out a box set. They're putting out, John's writing a new album right now. The documentary is going to be coming out. They've talked about touring already, and there's been Richie rumors for the last year. None of these are secrets. Start announcing things and kind of, maybe they're finalizing things, okay, but give us something to look forward to. I see all these other bands announcing tours and
I know
putting out cool merchandise. I'm like, hello, what's my favorite band doing here?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it. But also to everyone listening, I hope all is well, and I hope to see you and we can go to a show together and do all that in the very near future.
Open a night, man. Open a night of the next leg, next tour.
Yeah, that would be wherever it is. Let's do
it. Alaska will be there. We'll be there with our heavy coats and ready to roll.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, but thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you again for taking time out of your fun vacation there to come on and do this with me. Let me end the recording and talk to you for a couple minutes.
Okay.
Thanks again, buddy. Appreciate it.